Hello and welcome to the very first Kaleidopod for January 2023, one of 12 that myself, Chris Perry, is doing throughout the years, being ably assisted by various people behind the scenes who've worked on the audio transfers over the years, and there is no script for this at all. So what you're hearing basically is what I'm making up as I go along. So if I fluff the odd line here or there, do not be too surprised by that. The way we've created this is that I'm doing all the links in one go, and then the clips are being dropped in between. So apologies if maybe I reference something that you then don't get to listen to afterwards, because for some reason the clip just wasn't very good quality, or we just couldn't do much with it. It's a bit of the way Kaleidoscope works, really, where nowadays we're all kind of spread out over a big area. When it first started 35 years ago, there was just a small group of us that all lived in Starbridge together, and we'd see each other every Wednesday night down the pub. Now it's kind of spread out. So I'm doing this here, but you know, there were people working in Wales and then America and in all sorts of other places around the globe to create these Kaleidopods. And it's a whole new venture for us, really, and we're kind of hoping that you like it. I'm not going to try and do too much talking in between the clips, though I will try over the 12 or so to give you some flavour as to where the audio comes from, and I'll speak in some detail about each one as we go along. I'm going to start off with some memories from the Channel Islands. This was a bunch of tapes that were thrown out, actually, as part of a house clearance and bought by one of our spotters, a guy called Steve Monks, and this is Lord Coutanche, I hope I pronounced that correctly, with his memories of the occupation of the Channel Islands when the Germans were there in the Second World War.
I remember telling somebody, I think this is recorded in the books elsewhere, that if any grandchild of mine ever asked me in the years to come what I did in the war, I would say I protested. That was what one had to do. And be it said that very often one was able to get the variation of the orders which were made. Now, I think it's also very important to bear in mind, I've said this before, but there was absolutely no communication with England at all. Later on, we managed to get communications through the Red Cross of personal correspondence of a very strict nature, but that was, again, was only permitted provided that the bailiff was personally responsible. I had to set up an office, which was called the Bailiff's News Office, and all the Red Cross correspondence had to pass through this office, and I had got various persons, or my own selection, who were responsible for seeing that the correspondence was all proper and reasonable, and that really they were what one could ask the Red Cross to transmit. It was covered a very wide field. Another very important aspect of all this life was that we were permitted to draw rations from France. We turned over the island from the growing of potatoes and tomatoes to the growing of wheat, various forms of cereals. We got all the watermills back into action, and we became very largely self-supporting in flour. Of course, a great number of other things were required to make life possible. The Germans treated us as part of northwest France, which of course was conquered, at least temporarily conquered. And the French government of the department, the northwest of France, was under an obligation imposed upon them by the Germans to supply us with food.
Now, as you probably have noticed there, we like to give you a fairly good meaty clip. These clips are all in the region of at least 2, 3 or 4 minutes long, because you'd much rather hear them than hear me. I know you would. Our second clip is from the 24th of January 1964, from a series called The Omar Khayyam Show. And if you recognise Omar Khayyam, then of course you'll know it's the talents of Spike Milligan, who was on the BBC Home Service. This is one of quite a few things you're going to hear over the next few months that came about through the hard work of Charles Norton, who put out an appeal for lost radio shows on BBC Radio 4, nearly 10 years ago now. A huge amount was captured from various BBC sound engineers, and I'm delighted that we can get the chance to kind of play some of it for you, really. This is from episode 5, the America Cup, and you might recognise the voices in there of Bill Kerr or Bob Todd or Barry Humphries, better known by as Dame Edna Everage. And also you might recognise some of the music from George Chisholm and his Jolly Jazzers.
Where's that tall, spotty BBC Herbert? Here he is. I see. Tall, thin, reeking Tim Gudgeon, who lives dangerously. No vest.
Well, you know, he'll do anything for money.
Oh, yeah?
Ladies and gentlemen, this week, as usual, we salute the Commonwealth, particularly Australia.
Good on yous, cobblers.
In 1962, the Royal Australian Yacht Squadron challenged the Americans for the America Cup.
Just a cup? What about the saucer? Ow!
Look, here, hey, take these jelly babies and keep quiet.
Now then, John Shins Bruthel, put on your dramatic Australian commentator's voice and chat up the opening, John.
Yes, the America Cup. For over 150 years, men from the length and length of Europe have failed to wrest the trophy from the Americans.
So what did we do? Sir Frank Packer, a rich pauper, called a meeting of the Nobs.
Meeting of the Nobs. Gentlemen, you know me, Nobs. I've got the sea in my blood.
And you can see where it gets in, mate.
Now, cobblers, this meeting of yachtsmen of sunny Sydney is for one reason alone. We've got to lick the Americans.
I'm not going around licking Americans. I mean, you don't know where they've been.
You misunderstood me.
Well, it got a laugh, didn't it?
Yes, I can't argue with facts. Now, first we need money, gentlemen. Somewhere in the neighbourhood of, say, £100,000.
I moved out of that neighbourhood years ago.
Ho, 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 ho. Ha, 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 ha. Well, somebody's got to laugh at him. Come on now, Lord Fred. Will somebody say £50?
I can say it, but I haven't got it.
I got it, but I'm not going to say it. Very well, I'll put the money up and down. I'll auction my wife, Lady Packer, and give up smoking fivers. Somebody's knocking on the ceiling. Come in. There are easier ways, I suppose. Now then, tell me, as this is not television, who are you?
My name's Barry Cluck. Spelled C-L-U-C-K, but pronounced...
Of course, Barry Cluck. I knew your father, Mr...
That's him. He invented the feathered alarm clock. Now, I've heard you're going to contest the America Cup, so I offer myself to you as designer.
Have you any designs on you?
No, but I brought this young lady along. I have designs on her.
Now, Mr. Cluck, what did you have in mind as a salary?
Money.
Money? I can see you're nobody's fool. Now then, how much a week do you want?
£5,000.
5,000? Offer you 4.
Done.
Right, £4 a week then. Now then, settle down. Just sign this contract in which we guarantee to pay you £4 a week in hard-boiled eggs.
Is this contract binding?
I'll say. Here now, for no reason at all, in one kilt, George Chisholm and his pre-electric band.
And staying with Charles Norton's Radio 4 appeal, here are several items I'm going to talk about now that all came about because of him. The first one is an interview with Jon Pertwee, a man who doesn't need much introduction, that was recorded on the 8th of January 1964. While some of it was broadcast, this was the complete interview, so you're going to hear some stuff here that has never been heard before at all.
Well, I was in the Navy during the war. I was always seasick. I always have been seasick, so why I chose the Navy to join, I can't think. I think mainly because I like the idea of sort of long-range battles. I don't like being involved in hand-to-hand combat. I'd rather be there and say, cool, that was a good one, when it blows up. Or if you do, it seems to be quicker and a cleaner form of warfare, if you've got to have such a thing. And during the war, I served in HMS Hood, the battle cruiser, which you remember was sunk by the Bismarck, and I was extremely lucky to get off. Of that, I was a CW candidate and got off very shortly before she blew up. So close, in fact, was I to being blown up in it that my parents received letters saying that the addressee of this envelope is missing, presumed killed. I think my father was singularly shocked when I walked back, hale and hearty, rather disappointed, I think. On other occasions, in the water, for example, and nearly lost my legs. A couple of years ago, out in Ibiza, I'd been water skiing, and a diver suddenly shot up in front of me. And in turning the helm very smartly to stop running into him, I turned my boat upside down, or sufficiently to kick me out. And the boat went charging off round and round in circles. And in reviewing the situation, I thought probably that if I waited for it to pass me and I swam into the middle of its circle, because it was going in circles, I could pull myself on board and get it under some sort of control. Well, this, I assure you, is a very stupid thing to do, and if ever you see a boat going round and round in circles, don't try to get aboard, because it'll go on round in circles until it runs out of fuel, and will not do what I thought it might do, which is fly off and, mow down a lot of swimmers and bathers. But I tried to get back on board it. But by the time I'd got halfway across the road, as it were, sort of swimming into the middle of the circle, it was on me, and I flipped back on my back and kicked backwards, trying to push it out of the way, and grabbed it. But of course didn't grab the bow. I grabbed the sort of after ropes, and of course it slung me underneath the props, and took nice pieces out of both my legs. My friend standing on the quay didn't know this had happened. In fact, a German friend of mine said, "If I was you, I think this is a very, very bad idea. I don't think you should be doing this at all. I think you should come out and leave the boat entirely alone. Come out and leave it. It was very dangerous." At this time I was going down for the third time, hanging onto what was left of my legs. And if it hadn't been for a friend of mine there who runs a ski club, who came and hauled me out of the water, I think I would have copped it again.
A few years ago, we were contacted by a guy called Gordon Webster, who didn't have a huge amount in his collection, but what he had specialised in doing was recording audio of our various Doctor Who things over the years that didn't officially exist anymore. Some of this has subsequently come out on CDs, though interestingly enough, not always kept by the BBC archives. So you might have heard some of this before, but these are original recordings he sent us over the years. This is Pete Murray, my old friend Pete Murray, on Open House on the 29th of August 1978, talking to Tom Baker and Mary Tamm.
Tom, firstly I go to you about where we're going in the new series. Well, I mean, we're just always out in space, yes, but is there any particular new part of space that we'll be going to this time? Well, I mean, they're all fictional parts of space. Yes, we're on a place called Tara at the moment. But the interesting thing about the new series, of course, is the introduction of Nell's character Romana, who breaks away from the usual image of either just a pathetic juvenile used as a device, or from the last girl, Louise Jameson, who played a sort of noble savage. Now we've got Mary Tamm, glamorous, isn't she? But about her character, she knows more about. Yes, tell us about your character.
Well, we're man of the time now as well, which means that theoretically she's on an intellectual par with the Doctor. And she's just graduated from the Time Lords Academy, so in fact she comes out thinking that she knows everything. But when they embark on their adventures together, she discovers that in practicality it's very different facing monsters and facing aliens to actually reading about these places on paper. So she's got a process of learning to go through with the Doctor. At the beginning, in fact, there's a bit of friction between them, isn't there? Because they didn't really get on terribly well to start with, but it evened out as the series progresses, hopefully.
A bit like life.
A bit like life,
I'm sure they didn't apply when you first met Tom. I mean, hadn't you met each other before?
Then we hadn't, actually, but we did a screen test together before the series started. And, well, we did it on.
We did get on. Did you have a lot of competition in getting the book?
Well, I didn't know when other people went up for it. I think,
well, there were 600 applicants. They read it. 100?
Yes, and they did 6 screen tests, I think, eventually. They saw a lot of people.
Yeah.
And a sort of preliminary knockout type thing, and then there was a short list of 6, and we did 6 tests.
And you made it, kid.
I made it.
And there you are up in space. Have you finished recording, or are you still recording? Well, how? Yeah, I'm free through. It's a long haul. It goes 10 months non-stop. I know it does. And you've had repeats on prior to this, haven't you, as well? Yes, and they had marvellous figures too, because the summer figures are usually lower, but we had a great turnout. But funny things are happening. It's suddenly become international. I suppose it's something to do with the general revival of instant fantasy. They just made some sales of Doctor Who all over America.
Really?
For the first time on a serious scale.
Oh, that's tremendous, isn't it? Yeah. Because it isn't filmed, is it? It is on...
Well, it's partly though. We do have some of it on location.
Not always so easy to sell, partly tape, partly filmed. So that's a great boom. How do you think, well, perhaps I can't really ask you a question like that because you're bound to be slightly biased and prejudiced, but do you feel that it comes up, or is it better than the average science fiction American
equivalent? But I don't think that there actually is any equivalent. I think that's where it stands a good chance of being very successful.
I suppose there are science fiction things, though, aren't there?
Well, there are science fiction things. I would call ours more science fantasy. I think that the things about science fiction ones, that they're often rather serious in their intentions, aren't they? And the characters are often a bit cardboardy, because they're Earth people going through some kind of uproar. Whereas because we are both aliens, we're licensed by our character definition to freewheel around and perhaps, be a bit more strange and bizarre.
And also because Doctor Who is a sort of fictional character, it gives you more scope in a way. You can go further with it, whereas the American TV series that are usually broadcast in England, things like Wonder Woman and The Incredible Hulk, are the magazine characters, so they're actually within very strict limitations because they're only what had been seen in the Marvel comic.
Had you ever watched Doctor Who?
Yes, when I was a child. I watched it when it first started, about 15 years ago or something, but I haven't watched it much recently. I watched it when Louise was in it because we trained at RADA together, so I was rather interested to see her. But no, I've always liked the programme because I do actually think the standard is good. And I'm not as prejudiced, say, as, well, I don't think Tom is prejudiced, but as you say, you're bound to want the programme to be a success. But I think objectively speaking, it is quite a high standard considering it's done in such a short time.
When we did our 30th anniversary celebrations, which, strangely enough, were 5 years ago, we were there with Joy Whitby, and she brought along a BBC producer called Barry Bevins, who probably was better known for doing work with Hollywood stars. He'd work on things like Film 74, Film 75, Film 76, things like that. And he donated a load of audio to us that we've gradually been transferring over the last few years. And this is a location report from Return of the Pink Panther with Peter Sellers, Christopher Plummer and Blake Edwards.
Did you look at the original Pink Panther film before you wrote this one? No, I knew it. Intimately. How different is Inspector Clouseau these days from what he was in the original film? A little older. That's all. No wiser. He's basically the same. He looks the same. The only difference is that we've made some of his pronunciations more marked.
Well, he's making up. He's decided on a disguise, right?
Yeah.
And halfway through it, whatever he's doing turns the page. Some not.
Oh, yes. He's into it. Oh,
I'm having a ball. I think it's really terrific. I'm allowed to laugh as much as I like. I can, corpse whenever I want to. And that's, very lucky because if you're doing scenes with Peter, if I wouldn't have been able to corpse, it would have been up the whole time. I play Claudine, who is the wife of the Phantom. The Phantom is now retired and he's getting very bored. And so she tries her very best to sort of, I suppose, bring him back to crime.
Well, this is a more straight comedy in the sense that he's a kind of Douglas Fairbanks senior kind of leaping about fellow who doesn't always do it as graceful as he would like to. And it has a lightness and a sort of gay kind of, you can't call it Cary Grant sort of comedy, but it's a straighter kind of light and comedy thing.
Did you see the original Pink Panther film?
Yes, I did. And loved it.
Did you see that?
Yes, I did, yeah. I loved it.
But the character of Sir Charles, or the jewel thief character, has changed in each successive film, and the same actor, I don't believe, has played it twice. David Niven was delicious in the first one.
Claudia Cardinale played a role similar to yours. How different are you, do you think, from her?
Gosh, I don't know. I think we're completely different in types. Claudia Cardinale and myself. I don't know. I'm not exactly like that.
But they all vary a little bit.
He is the chauffeur to Sir Charles, which is Christopher Plummer, but he's more than that. He's really a part of the family now, as you will see in the film. He says what he likes. He's a bit like, how can I say, a big daddy to him, though, as Sir Charles or Christopher Plummer says in the film, he cooks a very good souffle. He obviously also does the laundry. and he drives the roles, but he's very cheeky, and he's part and parcel of the household.
How do you keep up the spontaneity when you have to do one more take after another in a comedy sequence?
Well, you see, this is a great thing with Blake. You very rarely ever do. I mean, if it works right first time, then he'll only do one take. He knows, you see, he doesn't believe in that over-covering a thing. A lot of directors don't have confidence in themselves. They say, well, maybe we'll get one better. Or maybe... Blake knows when it's right, and he grabs it that way. I mean, I've worked with directors who've done literally 20 and 30 takes just because they haven't anything better to do. Or they might have more to choose from. And they overcover. Mind you, some people say it's better to overcover than undercover. But if you know what you want when you're shooting, you just shoot what is necessary.
As we go along, things happen. I would say that if you had to talk in terms of percentages, I'd say it's 60% what is written, 40%, and that's in terms of dialogue and joke, 40% embellishment, if you will.
Forget the script. When you arrive on the set, everything's changed, and he's thought up something the night before, and he's, gives you really great ideas.
But inevitably, what you visualize in your head and what happens out there, there's usually a big discrepancy.
Is there anyone there who can drive the other book?
And here's a real interesting one, and I hope the music fans are going to discuss this for a long time to come, because it's a slight mystery to me. This is Slade in concert, we think probably for Germany or maybe Austria, recorded in 1972 by the BBC. I don't think they ever showed this, the BBC. Maybe it only went to Germany or Austria. Is this the sole surviving audio in the world of a Slade concert, I ask myself. I'm sure better people than me, including Gary Jordan, can probably answer that one.
U zult het aan de muziek zelf wel merken. Skinhead groep uit Engeland heet Slade. We proudly present Slade from England.
finally, from Charles's efforts, this is also from one of those reels that he worked on. This is the David Hamilton Show from BBC Radio 2. My mate Diddy, who has worked for many years with Kaleidoscope on different projects, and this is him in his prime.
Well, we'll have our next news at 5 o'clock, and now for Radio 1 and 2 listeners, it's over to the David Hamilton Christmas Day Show.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Have a very Merry Christmas with David Hamilton.
Whee! On the show, I bet again.
David Hamilton, the happy sound of Radio 1.
Welcome to the David Hamilton Show for Christmas Day. What can you say about a fabulous day like today?
It's the most wonderful time of the year, with the kids jingle belling and everyone telling you be of good cheer. It's the most wonderful time of the year. It's the happiest season of all.
Now, one collection you're going to hear an awful lot more from in the next few months is the radio collection and TV soundtrack collection of Bob Monkhouse. And I thought I'd spend a bit of time on this first show talking a bit about the connection with Bob, because it's a huge connection. When we were first asked by the BFI all those years ago, I think it was 2009, to go down to Bob's house at Claridge's and have a look, we were very interested by the thousands of videotapes. But I happened to notice that up in the attic, literally up in the attic on a couple of shelves, was a load of audio reels. Now, I have to say, Kaleidoscope never used to collect radio or audio stuff particularly. It just wasn't something that we had our sights set on. And initially, I didn't want to take any of it, actually. But Abigail, Bob's daughter, begged me to take it because she said otherwise it would go in the skip. So we did take it, and we found, hundreds of old, rare recordings going all the way back to the 1940s that Bob had recorded, either of himself or indeed of comedy shows that he happened to like as well. And we came to realise once Alan and Edis Hayes did the bulk of the transfers, that really it was probably more likely to have been recorded by Dennis Goodwin, his original partner, because most of it had Dennis's name on the actual tapes. So we renamed it as the Monkhouse Goodwin Archive to try and recognise the fact it was a combined effort of the two of them, really. This is an unbroadcast pilot from the 21st of July 1980 for something called The Harvey Brinkle Story. This is the work of Rob Grant and Doug Naylor, who I think you've probably heard of because of Red Dwarf, and this is something that would never have been heard before.
I was an only child, which was partly my fault, because every time my parents discussed trying for another baby, I'd strip down naked, leap into their bedroom and say, "Hey, top this." I was a very brash child. Way back in the 30s, I remember playing a tennis game with three great personal friends of mine, Salvador Dali, Pablo Picasso, and Jean-Paul Sartre. And I was the only one who could hold his serve. Why? Well, Dali was playing with a racket that was about 15 yards long, with a head that drooped at the end. Picasso insisted on using square balls, and Sartre, great existentialist, I grant you, but he just refused to accept that anything existed, particularly the line calls. I accused him of being a bad sport, and he said, Harvey said, "I believe the whole universe to be totally meaningless, especially you." I was young, I was brilliant, my whole life lay before me, and then something came along to change all of that.
It's September 1939, and world leaders gather in Vienna for the draw for the Second World War. There's Neville Chamberlain waving at the camera. He's Prime Minister of England. Well, Neville, let's hope for a good one, eh?
Number 47, Germany. Number 24 will play the rest of the world.
That is a cracker. The Germans, of course, eliminated from the First World War by the rest of the world, and they'll be looking to make amends this time.
Number 16, Italy. Number 79 will play anybody who's losing.
That's the one the Italians wanted. Benito Mussolini was saying this morning he wanted either anybody who's losing or nobody at all. He'll be delighted with this one.
So war was declared. How did I feel at this time? Well, I believe in democracy and freedom, in the divine right of the people to choose the form of government that they desire. And I believe that anyone who doesn't think this way should be beaten insensible until they do. For this ideal, I was prepared to fight, and if it meant laying down my life for my country, then by golly, I was ready to do it.
And something else, which I say sounds slightly more recent, if you can call 1994 more recent, but this is William Tell, The Lost Epic, there again recorded by Bob Monkhouse. It's about the aborted 1953 film version starring Errol Flynn, and Conrad Phillips, who played, of course, TV's William Tell, is here in conversation talking about this. William Tell, The Lost Epic.
William Tell. The story of the Swiss folk hero had already been used by Hollywood as the basis for Burt Lancaster's The Flame and the Arrow, and by coincidence was being mapped out by MGM for Stuart Granger. Salkin wanted Errol Flynn for his version.
So there we were in Italy, and we were tax-free, and so I made a couple of other deals, one of them William Tell, but they put up $50,000 in advance each of these deals. So Errol had $250,000 in the bank that he never had before, and he was out of the tax thing because the last picture we did here was with Universal, where he took half the picture instead of salary. They couldn't afford to pay him. And we had another picture with Allied artists to do up in England called The Black Prince or something, which I didn't produce, but I was associate producer. So we went around with William Tell, and there was no script, and there were complaints from Switzerland as if this guy was real. You know, if it's like somebody doing a thing on George Washington, at least he was real. But here, the guy's fictitious. They're saying, no, you can't have him married, you can't have him this, you can't have him not married. So it was going to be a difficult job.
But he didn't realize how difficult. On December 4th, 1952, 2 weeks after MGM's announcement, Salkin obtained $50,000 to finance his film. No more was heard of the proposed MGM Granger version. Meanwhile, Flynn started filming his first Italian production, Crossed Swords.
Hey, what's all the excitement about? What the devil's wrong with you?
It was all Francesca's idea. She would trap Renzo, we would surround him and make him listen to the bachelor law. But we not for you. We not for you.
For once, I thought the playing of games was over. For once, and only for the length of a kiss. I'll take this from Renzo, notorious rake and one of the best jumpers out of windows in the known world. You gave promise of being a real woman. Why don't you try being one? During the filming of that scene, Flynn turned yellow and collapsed. He was rushed to hospital, seriously ill with liver complaint. Send for his relations if you can, the doctor told Mahon, because he's likely to die. Despite this slight setback, Technicolor cameraman Jack Cardiff continued filming Crossed Swords, his first in the new and cheaper Pathicolor system. I was lucky enough to work with Jack Cardiff on one of his later films, Sons and Lovers. I seem to remember I played a character called Baxter Dawes.
If any of you know Pat Richmond, you'll know that she's a huge Mary Hopkin fan, and we transferred her audio some years ago, and this was something that we found. This is the Golden Shot, keeping the Bob Monkhouse collection. Smooth link, this, you notice, very smooth there. Okay, and this is from the 1st of September 1975. This is Bob with, as you would expect, some connection into Mary Hopkin. Actually, I'm not totally sure what the connection to Mary Hopkin is, actually, because I can't see her listed on the run here. But for some reason, we found this on one of Pat's tapes, and it's probably more likely you recognise Anne Aston, Way Wrong, and the Golden Partner, Bernard Cribbins.
Yes, I'm afraid he's hit the smoke. Oh, dear.
Can you imagine having your pick of the Silbury selection? You take the key. Well, the choice is really marvellous in here. Offers a dishwasher and bunk beds. Let's open the door for you. Here we go. You know, for the past 13 weeks, I've thoroughly enjoyed doing a radio series called Punchline. Opposite the brilliant and very funny star of film successes like Carry On Jack, Two-Way Stretch, The Railway Children. Yes, my Golden Days book says, December the 29th, 1928 BC. Well, he's not really that old. He just looks it in strong daylight. Bernard Cribbins, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Your people.
Thank you very much. That's marvellous.
Enough.
That's enough, he said. Enough. He said, fancy me on the golden shot.
I wouldn't fancy you on toast.
I would punch him in the eye, but I don't like getting mascara on my fist.
Look, Cribbins,
Yes, dear.
you've come here to shoot off the crossbow, not shoot up your mouth. So
Yes, right.
come on, pick a letter.
Yes, Bob, just want to say it's fantastic, this setup. And now I've seen where you've done all these, 300 shows, isn't it? Yeah. I realise now why you fit so perfectly into this series. I mean, you're absolutely perfect.
How do you mean I'm perfect?
Well, I mean, in the first place, this is a game about shooting, isn't it? And you resemble a rifle. Don't you think so? It does resemble a rifle.
I resemble a rifle?
Yes. Yes, I mean, you think you're the butt of the jokes and a barrel of laughs, but really you're half-cocked, a hell of a sight, and a large bore.
Curses!
Yes, and what's more? I was going to... You give us all these targets about things which happened 900 years ago, and the jokes match. I mean, the crossbow has to be fired, and you ought to be. You're full of bull. Full of bull. I can wait, I'm not proud. Off target. The audience looks blank. The contestants are hand-picked, and so's your hooter. Absolutely perfect.
Thank you, Cribbins, and may I say...
And may I say... You
that
may.
we have needed you on this show ever since it began.
You haven't, have you? How's that, Bob?
Every week for 7 years, we've been calling for you.
Yeah?
Bernie the Dolt.
I see. Yeah, you wouldn't think Bob and I really love each other, would you? And you'd be right.
That's why we call our radio series Punchline. Every time one of us thought of a good line, the other punched him.
Rubbish.
Come on, Cribbs. Spin the wheel.
Right, it's the only good turn on the show. Are you ready? Here we go.
I should have known better. Round and round she goes. Where she'll stop, nobody knows.
That one. Right.
Now, this is someone writing to us to nominate a golden partner. Someone who'd like to compete in the show, but can't for some reason or another and deserves to get lucky.
Now, this is from Mrs. J. Smith at 15 Walton Close, Halesoe, West Midlands, B63 4LA. Dear Bob, I would like to nominate my niece, Mrs. Margaret Newell, of 49 Huntsman's Drive, Kinver, near Starbridge, as a golden partner. She has had muscular dystrophy for a number of years and is confined to a wheelchair now. Indeed.
Have you any suggestions to make about how we benefit Margaret Newell?
Well, I'll tell you what we could do. What about me adding a personal bonus and giving either my golden partner, if she can make it, or, if not, some relatives, free seats for the funniest show in London?
Yes, there's always room in the House of Commons this time of the year.
Yes, just a minute. Just a minute. I'm referring to the new comedy hit starring me, Peggy Mount, Bill Pertwee, Geoffrey Sumner, Terence Alexander, Jane Downs, Trudy Van Dorn, Margot Hardiman, and it's at the Criterion Theatre in Piccadilly Circus.
Where?
Piccadilly Circus, you know. Well, you can't miss it. There's a fella in the middle of the road. He's doing the golden shot like that.
Oh.
And carrying on with the Bob Monkhouse connection and the Conrad Phillips connection as well, we have a wonderfully spooky ghost play here from the 2nd of January 1981 called The Hex, which was based on M.R. James's Casting the Runes, starring Conrad Phillips as Montague. This is smooth stuff, you see, this is. I mean, you wouldn't get this on Radio 2, would you? They wouldn't be as good as this. If you believe that, you believe anything.
James, are you awake?
Yes.
And decent?
In bed.
That'll do. I brought you up a cup of coffee and a few sandwiches. How do you feel?
Oh, like I could drink a cup of coffee and eat a few sandwiches.
Okay. Sit up. Balance the tray. Right.
Fine. Oh. What time is it? My watch has stopped.
7:15. Been awake long?
Half an hour, perhaps. 7:15?
About, yes.
Oh, you're up early, aren't you? For Saturday?
James, it's 7:15 in the evening. You've been asleep all day.
What?
I wouldn't bring you ham sandwiches for breakfast.
Evening?
You were quite bad last night. John thought it was a heart attack at first. Your heart did stop, he said, very briefly. He put you under mild sedation.
I see. What happened?
What do you mean?
In the kitchen. I remember the noises. Someone or something trying to get in. The fear. was out of all proportion. It left me just enough wits to realise that. It was like a separate thing, an enormous shadow that fell over me when the noises started, but not... And then I felt...
Yes?
And then he brought me ham sandwiches and coffee. What did happen?
Well, when we got there, you were lying on the floor. The windows were smashed and the door was forced. We didn't see anyone, but then we didn't look, not till later. Our main concern was you, I told you. John thought you had a heart attack.
That's all?
Yes. And the kettle was boiling and the room was cold. Unnaturally cold. How do you feel now?
Well, not too bad. Shaken, but not too bad.
Up to receiving visitors?
Visitors? What visitors?
Elspeth Speedwell.
She's here.
Downstairs. We finally got through to her this morning. We didn't tell her much over the phone, but when she realised what it was about, she came straight away. She knows everything now. Gardini, the curse, what happened last night. You don't mind?
No, of course not. I've got to see her.
She wants to speak to you, too. If you're feeling up to it, we'll bring her up.
You're what?
Well, we'll bring her up. I'll get you John's dressing gown to slip round your shoulders.
Oh, for goodness sake, you'll do no such thing. I'm not an invalid. I'll get washed and dressed and come downstairs.
Another of our spotters that turns up the odd thing, normally extracts, is a gentleman called Darren Hart, who has a radio show, and I'm sure he does a far better job on his radio show than I do on this podcast, I have to say. But this is from the London Palladium show on the 1st of January 1967.
You
Now, eBay does turn up some interesting things, and we were unlucky to be outbid some years ago now for a collection of audio reels that contained a Missing Sykes episode. This was a TV soundtrack to a Sykes, and I was rather amazed some months later when Charles Norton suddenly transferred them and sent us a copy of this one. This is Sykes and a Camping from the 7th of March 1963, and you might recognise the dulcet tones of Jack Smethurst, who recently passed away in here.
It's still pouring down out there.
It'll stop. It'll stop. At no time since records were kept has it ever gone on forever.
Eric, why can't we camp in some nice little hotel somewhere?
Yeah, and sit in the lounge, looking out the window, watching the rain at £6 a day. This is the life, and it's free.
Oh, that's
We've got protection.
Come on, Milkman, come in. Bring them in here, please.
Yes. Hello. Call the lifeboat out of the...
Well, it makes a change. I was expecting lovely weather for ducks.
What's all this gear?
Oh, well, if it's good enough for the Prime Minister, it's good enough for my brother.
Well, I hope you know the grouse shooting season's over.
The milkman shooting season isn't.
Would you stop the milk for 4 days, please, Milkman?
Going away.
We're going camping.
Camping? In a tent?
In a tent?
What, in this?
Well, it's better than sitting in a hotel at £6 a day. Eric, I know a hotel that's much cheaper than £6 a day.
Now, don't start that again, Hattie. What's a bit of rain?
Bit of rain? There's a fellow up the road started building himself an ark.
Eric, let's wait till it stops.
No, Het, we've only got 4 days left and we're going to use them to go camping.
Yeah, well, I'll bet you back home tonight.
How much? How much?
Well, I bet you don't camp out 4 nights.
Yeah, all right, come on. Let's,
Fiver.
A fiver. You heard that, didn't you?
Yeah.
A fiver.
I know about camping, mate. I roughed it during the war.
Oh, don't talk to me about the war. You remember that stinking little hotel I was billeted in during the war? 4 of us to a room. Don't talk to me about roughing it, mate. We were 6 months before we got sheets on the bed.
Once it was 3 weeks before Eric got leave.
3 weeks? Listen, mate, I never came home for 3 years.
How old's your Jack?
No, never mind that. I'm back now tomorrow for my fiver.
Yeah, there was nobody here. He'd spent all the war in Reigate, he did. Come on, Het.
A few items here now from the Ed Doolan archive, a gentleman who didn't live a million miles away from me in Selly Oak, and we were very privileged to be given his archive when he passed away, thanks to Jasper Carrott arranging it, funnily enough. And a few items here. He worked for BRMB for a while, interviewing celebrities, and this is Arthur Lowe you're going to hear first of all, being interviewed by Ed in 1976.
Where I was transferred to the Remy and stayed out there for the rest of the war. I was out there for nearly 4 years. And during that time, while I was out in the Middle East, towards the end of World War, when everybody was getting sent happy, you know, there was nothing to do, I started getting some plays going and play readings and things, and found that, you know, I'd resurrected an old love, really. And, well, here we are today, you know, with many vicissitudes along the path, but...
Doubtless, when you were serving in the army back in those days, how did you look at the Home Guard as a serving soldier? Did you see them differently to the way you'd see them now?
I don't know. No, I don't think so very much, because, you see, in certain branches of the real army, it was just as chaotic. I mean, when we changed from being cavalry to being medium artillery, it was very little different, I can assure you, because artillery gave us the actual guns, and when they arrived, they were iron-tired, with 6-inch howitzers from the First World War. But before that, we had to use the officer's trap as a gun, you see, and you know, with the shafts down and loading it with sweeping brushes and all that. It was just as ridiculous.
And somewhere out there in the Midlands, there were 2 Germans looking at each other at the moment and saying, "On Hans, yet we lost." How did you first get involved with Dad's army?
Well, in It was after the swindler days. You know what I mean by the swindler days?
No, you tell me. I don't.
Well, I was with Coronation Street for years.
Although this was this before I came in the country? I don't know. Yes.
1961.
No.
I started with Coronation Street, and I was with it for 4.5 years. Then they peeled me off in the character of swindler. You should know. I mean, it was all over Australia, and still is, as far as I know.
Yes, but we got it years later. Literally years later.
And anyway, but to cut a long story short, I'd done this character of swindler for about 6.5 years, and we thought it was time to stop. Both Granada and I thought it was time that we'd wrap that one up. So I decided I would go back into the theatre for a year till the heat was off, television-wise, you see. So I did, and but within 9 months, the BBC had offered me this Dad's Army thing, you see, and it was very strange because it came in a welter of other work. I suddenly had one of those spurts where work was coming in from all sides, and we were sorting it out, what to do, what not to do. And from the back of my mind, I did a sort of double take. Because I'd heard my agent say this, and by the way, David Croft wants you to have lunch with him at the BBC to talk about a new 7-part series or something. And I did this double take days afterwards, and it suddenly clicked. I thought, oh God, this is the man I must go and see, because it's time I work for the BBC again, you see. And I went along and saw him and Jimmy Perry. And they said, we've got this idea, what do you think about it? So I liked the idea, and then I said, who have you got in mind for the rest of the cast? And when they told me, of course, I jumped. With a team like that, I don't see how we can fail.
And the next item from Ed's collection is a comedy playhouse called House in a Tree, which you might recognise better as the pilot for Not in Front of the Children, starring Wendy Craig and Paul Damon. Here it is, Richard Waring's original comedy pilot with Wendy Craig as Jennifer, and Paul Damon as Henry. And you might recognise the dulcet tones of various other well-known people like Fanny Rowe as the mother, Rosalind Knight as Biddy, and Roberta Tovey as Trudy.
Oh, hello, Mum. Things have come to a pretty pass when one takes one's life in one's hands just dropping in for a cup of tea. Haven't you told Henry to take that dangerous pile of wood down?
Yes, well, he hasn't got round to it yet.
No, he hasn't got round to much else either. This house is almost the same shambles it was when you moved in a year ago.
Well, we can't afford to buy new things.
No, not surprised. With Henry on an art master's salary. What a job. Messing about with paint, rubbing shoulders with naked models.
But he does manage to fix in a couple of pictures sometimes.
Well, he doesn't sell any of his pictures, does he?
Oh, I don't know. His last exhibition didn't do badly.
Exhibition? On the railings of Kensington Gardens?
Well, he sold 3.
Yes, let them go cheap when it started to rain. No, I'm sorry, Jennifer, but I still think you made a great mistake in not marrying Roger Parker.
Well, it's a bit late to bring it up, Mum. I've had 3 kids and Roger's had 4.
He's left his wife.
Yes, I still can't see Henry inviting him to stay here. Oh, Mum, would you take over, please?
Hello, darling.
Henry, just hang on a second, will you?
Darling? Hello? Hello? Hello?
Henry, Mum's here, and I didn't want her to know you had to go to, you know.
Yeah, well, as a matter of fact, darling, I'm still here.
Have they got to you yet?
Yes?
Oh, they have got to you.
They've passed me.
Well, why are you still there?
They want to hang on to me.
Couldn't you pay the fine or something?
Well, I didn't get as far as paying the fine. I said I wouldn't take the treehouse down.
Henry!
It's called contempt of court.
Henry, you're not going to...
Prison, yes. I'm sorry, darling.
Henry!
Oh, darling, I have to go now.
Oh, but how long will you be there?
Till I've purged my contempt. That means agreeing to take the treehouse down. You see, it's a matter of principle, darling.
Well, when can I see you?
Well, I don't know. I'll ask the tipstaff. When can my wife see me?
She makes application to the governor.
Make application to the governor, darling. I'm not sure the exact address. I just imagine Brixton Prison would find him.
Brixton?
Yes. Well, you didn't think they were going to send me to Dartmoor, did you?
Oh, Henry, how can you be so calm about it, chatting on about prison governors and tipstaffs and...
Yeah, darling, I must go now.
Henry!
Would you like me to cook supper or scrub the kitchen floor?
Goodbye, darling.
That wasn't Roger Parker.
What? No, Henry.
Really? Rather a passionate farewell, wasn't it, to someone you'll be seeing again in a couple of hours?
I'll just go and get the tray.
That was from May 1967, in case you hadn't kind of twigged that. And another comedy playhouse here from the Ed Doolan archive. This is The Loves of Larch Hill, written by Anne Burnaby, who I don't know much about her, which is why this is quite an interesting little piece. From the 12th of May 1969. This never went any further than a pilot, I have to say. But, you know, a good cast with Robert Downing and Jan Holden in the roles of Robert Love and Liz Love.
Out of the window. Wouldn't you think, Bob, with all the trouble we take, that they'd be a bit more grateful? I mean, look at your mother. She still has a loving family around her. Even she doesn't seem really settled or happy.
My mother is happier now than she's been in years. She's got me under her tiny little thumb again. How would you like to be the only son of a female Rasputin?
I wouldn't like to be anyone's only son, thank you. I enjoy being a girl.
And I'm glad of it.
And it's all in the mind, you know. You're the one who really wants to do the dominating, because you make out it's the other way round. Your mother couldn't dominate a donut.
She dominates me.
You said it, dear, I didn't.
Hello, old man. You're late on parade. Oh, Liz. I say I'm frightfully sorry. I'm not used to the pleasure of your company at this time of the evening.
What makes you think it'll be a pleasure, Henry, dear?
Yes, well, 2 large scotches, Beryl, and...
2 large pink gins. Both for me.
Oh, yes, certainly. I say, don't mind me asking, but is anything the matter? You look absolutely ghastly, the pair of you.
He's lost his mother.
Oh, Lord. Oh, I'm dreadfully sorry to hear that. How did it happen?
She just went. One moment she was perfectly all right, wasn't she, Liz?
Perfectly. And the next, she'd gone.
We've been to the bowling alley, the bingo hall, the bridge club, the old-time dancing, anywhere we could think of.
Anything to take your mind off things, I suppose? I don't imagine she'd want you to go into mourning. I mean, she'd had a good innings, hadn't she?
Look, old man, I don't mean to say I've lost her. I mean to say I've lost her. She strayed.
Oh, I'm with you. Yeah, that must be a bit worrying. You don't think she might be suffering from loss of memory or something?
Oh, not a hope, old man. She can remember that it went right back to the time when I cut my first tooth and tried to bite the vicar. Now listen, Henry, do try and be a little bit more helpful, will you, old boy? Now, where would you go if you were knocking on 80 and you wanted a bit of fun?
Well...
I don't think you'd be that much of an optimist, would you, Henry?
Excuse me, Mr. Love, but what's your mother look like?
Don't tempt me, Beryl. She beggars description.
Well, I'm only asking because there's a little old lady around the public that doesn't look as if she belongs there. Talking very ooh-la and drinking large ports. Could she be your mum?
Well, couldn't be anybody else's by the sound of it.
Large ports in the public bar?
Well, it's cheaper around there, don't forget. You can have a sing-song if you feel like it.
A sing-song? No mother of mine would have...
I'm not so sure, you know.
But she only knows songs my mother taught me.
Sounds as though somebody taught her knees up Mother Brown.
Mother, what do you think you're doing?
It's something called a knees up.
We're going to go back to Graham Webb here now, and this is something else from his collection that originally went out on the 10th of January 1969. TV soundtrack there again, all wiped. This is the Fawcett Saga. Probably one known as a vehicle for Jimmy Edwards, him of Wacko fame, playing James Fawcett, and you'll recognise other dulcet tones in there, probably of Sam Kidd playing Herbert Quince, and probably June Whitfield as well. Very early LWT, and not kept because it was made in black and white.
But you don't know nothing about being a detective, Mr. Potter.
I'm an author, Herbert. I know about everything.
Yeah, but you ain't got no training, no equipment. You ain't got an office. What's more, you ain't got no informants.
No, but I have got the one essential qualification.
What's that, sir?
A rich client.
How do you feel about supernatural manifestations, Mr. Fawcett?
Oh, so-so. Apart from a brush with a she-devil up the Hindu Kush, I've always managed to find a rational explanation.
As I said earlier, the house is regularly visited by the most fearsome apparition, a headless huntsman together with a pack of baying hounds.
He who sees the phantom hounds hangs himself or else he drowns.
What do you think of that, eh?
Well, I'm not much of a judge of poetry, as a matter of fact. I have dabbled myself, of course, but I'm more of a prose man, really.
I was referring to the awful significance of the rhyme.
Yes, well, I mean, my dear Merriweather, if you're so perturbated, I don't know why you don't pack up and sell the house and leave.
Oh, no, I couldn't possibly do that. Unless I continue to live here, my entire inheritance of £50,000 a year goes to charity.
50,000? Well, I dare say you'll be feeling very generously disposed towards anyone who sets your mind at rest about these supernatural manifestations.
Precisely why I sent for you, Mr. Fawcett. I have long been an admirer of your exciting green dwarf stories.
Yes, well, first there's the matter of my fee. Now, if we could settle the sum of that fee straight away...
Tell me, how does a writer like you get this inspiration? A sudden urge to write?
Well, it comes to me in the most extraordinary, unexpected times, really, such as when I'm discussing my financial affairs with my banker, you know. Now, if we could fix a sum now...
And your characters, Mr. Fawcett, they have the breath of life in them. They're never overdrawn.
I wish I could say the same of myself. As you're such a devotee of my literary works, I'm prepared to make a substantial reduction in my normal consultation fee.
Yes, in the morning. We'll talk about that in the morning.
All those who saw the huntsman ride took to their beds and quickly died. I'll bring in the cocoa.
You could have her destroyed, you know. I'll be quite frank with you, Mr. Merriweather. I'd be much easier in my mind if you signed your cheque now before you went to bed. I mean, if anything should happen to you in the night, I'd never forgive you, myself.
Yes, but I pay by results. Always have done, always will. First, you must solve the mystery.
Oh, very well, then there's no need for me to prevaricate any longer, is there? I've solved your mystery. Solved it completely. It all came to me in a blinding flash. You know, suddenly, bang, like that. The pieces all fitted together so neatly, so perfectly, like a jigsaw puzzle. Why, this apparition is nothing more or less than a sort of a... kind of a...
Yes, what?
Well, I mean, you need look no further than... Miss Gaunt. There, sir, is your headless huntsman.
Miss Gaunt, my devoted housekeeper? You mean I've been nurturing a serpent to my bosom?
Well, I know nothing of your domestic arrangement. There is the culprit.
Now, Kaleidoscope itself has done some audio recording over the years. Many of our guests at the very early events in Stourbridge, and Mark Shutterworth fortunately kept some of those. We have a large collection to choose from, but we're going to try and run you some extracts from some of the next few years. This is from December 2006, when we had Verity Lambert, better known, of course, as the first producer of Doctor Who, though I remember for her many other things like Widows and Adam Adamant and, you know, other shows like that. And when we had her, she'd been delayed by about 4 months from when she was originally planned to appear. We weren't aware, of course, that she was dying at the time of cancer. And she was an incredibly brave, strong woman who never, ever kind of gave us a hint. She enjoyed coming to Stourbridge because she had an aunt who lived in Kinver, not very far from us. So we had quite a nice chat about antique glass and Kinver and all sorts of things. And then we also touched on, in the main interview, of course, her work. So we're going to have two sections here, one on Doctor Who and one on Adam Adamant Lives.
And I think people who do come in and actually, for example, the people who came after me and had to do Doctor Who, I think their job was extremely difficult because I had all the luck of not being prejudged. I didn't have anything to, nobody was going to say, well, this is a huge success. Now what are you going to do about it? So I left a legacy. I mean, we were very fortunate, and I have to say, quite really fortunate because. I was a very inexperienced producer, and I think there was a lot of luck attached to the success of Doctor Who, which we know in hindsight, because although I had experience working in television, I wasn't experience. And I suppose I was lucky in the sense that you have all the arrogance of the young thing and not really realizing what pitfalls are actually in your way. But I think that, for example, Innes Lloyd, who came in and produced Doctor Who after I did, who did, I think, a fantastically good job and made it, resuscitated, revitalized it really. Had probably a more difficult job. And just as I'm full of admiration for Russell T Davies and the people who have resuscitated Doctor Who, because I think that what they've done is it's terribly difficult to resuscitate something that's become a sort of legend. And what they have done is they have kept the essence of the old series but brought it up to date so that a modern audience can, react.
It is always interesting. There's the title sequence, yeah. I mean, which in a sense, I understand why people compared it to the Avengers. Though I agree with you, I never really saw it in the same mould as the Avengers. But that was probably because it shared some of the same writers, didn't it? So it was going to have inevitable comparisons, but because of that,
it shared a lot of the same writers, and some very good writers. But I think the problem is if you work for something like the Avengers, and you're working for something that has a premise which is a bit outrageous, then there is a tendency to try and repeat things that work in another area. Whereas I think what we really needed was more Mark Twain than the Avengers, more Yankee at the court of King Arthur, and people know that whole kind of observation of two cultures completely separated by years, and I just felt apart from the one that seemingly has been wiped, that James McTaggart wrote, I don't think we ever really got as close as I would have liked. I mean, that's not to say that, I thought that Gerald Harper was superbly good as Adam Adamant. Really just the right person. And Juliet was sweet as what's her name? Georgina, that's right.
I can't forget that name. I'm not allowed to. My work's
well, absolutely. And Jack May was absolutely lovely as the butler with all these awful limericks. But it just sort of missed, really. So.
4 years later, we had a member of Patton's People here. D.D. Wilde was with us in June 2010. And this interview could go on forever because, she spoke for over an hour about the wonderful life that was being in Patton's People. But here's an extract of what she talked about with Patton's People, what it was like when they first got on to Top of the Pops.
That's how they did it in those days.
They must have been much more kind of demanding in the sense that you had...
They were, because you had to absolutely know when to do the number, when to do your little piece. Like, Ruth and I would be doing one thing here, Baz would be there over there doing that, Ruth would be running around. And funny enough, it seems easy, but it isn't, because it was late at night, after the show we'd be doing this, and you're putting it into little bits and...
So you'd have done a number.
We'd already done our number. Yeah. This would be for the next week. And all this technology... I can't even say it anyway, you know what I mean? Yes, and the lights and everything. And so you did go wrong because suddenly the music would come up and they'd say, you missed your cue. And it was literally like putting it together.
Did you have a preference between the two? Of doing one that was just a sort of straightforward?
Oh, straightforward any day. Also, I was a terrible show-off. I love the audience. I've always loved the audience.
So having studio audience?
Yes, studio's audience. So the atmosphere in the studio, and Dave will tell you, it was just incredible. Especially on a live show, it was electric, and it was just a most wonderful atmosphere. And you had also all the other audience in cages behind you and things like that. But it was a great atmosphere and very scary as well.
Because presumably, if something did go wrong, you really couldn't stop and do it again.
Well, we did a number called Kenny Rogers, and the first edition, I think it's called. Yes, and it was called Something's Burning. And it was one of these sort of frenetically mad numbers. And when Flick sometimes used to do, it was 8 beats in a bar in 2 bars. I shouldn't tell you how to suck eggs, and then she'd make us do maybe two movements on each beat. So we were sort of moving around like I don't know what. And it's so fast on this particular number, and it was very strong and very forceful and very energetic. And I can't remember who it was, and I'm not going to say even if I did remember. One of us went wrong that day. And slowly, it was like a domino effect. Everybody went wrong because it was just so difficult not to keep going. And so in the end, I would say the last 16 bars, we just all improvised. We just all improvised because there was nothing else you could do on a live show. In fact, things sometimes did go wrong. I mean, we were forever falling off the podium. We had a lot of people thought that we had enormous space. We didn't. It was 20 feet by 20 feet. And it was probably the height of the table over there where it says Kaleidoscope. And that was our stage.
And you were in heels.
And we were in heels. And sometimes if you had dry ice, you couldn't see the back or the front. And if some of you know, dry ice, when it gets down onto the floor, is totally lethal. And we were doing Windmills of My Mind, which is Noel Harrison. Thank you. I love all you lovely people, promptly. And we were wafting through these gorgeous diaphanous dresses, and suddenly Babs disappeared, completely disappeared. And all you heard was the sort of screech and thud, and then pow! in the middle of the performance. So we just had to, carry on, step over and carry on.
John Coley is a man you probably know better nowadays as doing the colour restorations first on black and white shows, but he also collects audio, and this is a sci-fi series called Orbiter X that he sent us a few years ago. I don't know a transmission date for it. Perhaps someone out there will know it instead. But we thought, there again, because it's sci-fi, we'd run a bit of it for you.
We are not going to do anything unpleasant to you, Hicks. We are simply carrying out a certain program of research.
Research, you call it? All right, tell me the worst.
As you know, the normal functions of the body can be slowed down by a controlled process of cooling.
And that's what you're going to do to me, is it?
Yes.
Why? What's the idea?
Looking ahead, we envisage space flights that may last months, perhaps years. In such cases, a form of suspended animation based on the cooling principle would relieve the crews of all their discomforts. They would put themselves into this condition soon after takeoff, and a time mechanism would, as it were, bring them back to life as their ship approaches its objective.
That's what you hope.
That is what we are working on, because in this way men might travel to worlds many light years away from the Earth.
Okay, let them go, but loosen these clamps, will you? I can't move.
You must remain quite still. Otherwise, the cooling elements cannot do their work smoothly. As your body temperature falls, we shall give you certain treatment to help the process along. It will be quite painless, and you will go into a deep sleep.
How long for?
Just a short period to begin with. And when you awake, you will be quite unaware of the passing time. But even if it were 100 years, you would not have aged. So, in effect, we are giving you an extra span of life.
Yeah, but it isn't human. You can't do this.
Just relax, my friend. I am turning up the cooling control.
Now here's a highly embarrassing one for me, and I don't quite know what this is going to sound like, because I recorded this. This is nothing at all to do with Kaleidoscope. Whoever put this in the running order should get shot. And in fact, I know where you live, so I shall be round to get you soon, Mr. Producer. But this is the Decaffeinated Banana Show, and this is a band called Blue House that I introduced and recorded on UKC Radio, University of Kent at Canterbury Radio, back in 1988. God blimey. And even then Kaleidoscope was in existence. But this is the Decaffeinated Banana Show with DJ Chris Perry.
I assume that being a local band, you've got quite a strong local set of groupies, shall we say?
Groupies is probably too strong a word, because in fact we're all completely celibate now.
Except from terrible.
Yeah, in fact, except for all of us. I was live. No, well, there's quite a few fans. I mean, we probably attract the wrong sort of following. Nuns.
They're a bit poor.
Chainsaw murderers.
They're not very profitable, really, are they? Do you find it's the guitarist or the drummer who tends to get all the attention?
Well, I mean, certainly the guitarist and the drummer and the bass player do throw themselves at me quite a lot.
I see. And how about the actual women as well?
Well, we don't really like them, do we? Well, yeah, we do, but we've got this big problem because we've got this vow, and we can't really break it at the moment. No, I'm not a sex emblem. I'm afraid there's no way I could be classed as that. I have a bit, but it's just the same as everybody else. I like people potter about in the garden. Yeah, sort of a little bit.
Right. So you don't see any future for the group then?
There's no real prison, really, is there? No, I don't see any past for the group. I don't see anything. I had an eyelash in my eye earlier on, and it's still affecting me.
Before you do actually, Joe, did you actually pay the band's fee for playing these songs on your radio?
Yeah, these are. Well, this is classed as a promotional visit, which means technically you should be paying us. Yes, well, before we have a disagreement on the radio, I think we ought to say good night to Mr. Joe Doveton.
Well, good night, Chris. Good night, listeners. Thanks for having me.
And Mr. Basil Glynn, stroke Barry Glum.
Bye, everyone.
Cool response. This is the Decaffeinated Banana Show, broadcasting on UKC Radio 999 kilohertz 301 medium wave AM.
That cringeworthy to hear that again after all these years, I have to say, but probably if you're really unlucky, you might get to hear my voice a bit more, particularly since I'm the one doing the podcasts. I mean, you can request somebody else, like, Jeremy Clarkson, but I don't think he's available, so I think you're just stuck with me for now. Back to Gordon Webster again, and one of the things that he did have was quite a large collection of Peter Cushing audio reels that he sent us. And this is Peter Cushing on Ask Aspel from the 7th of January 1973.
A long story. Cut it very, very short. I'd always wanted to be an actor far back as I can remember. And I was in an office. I had a glorified office boy, really, surveyor's assistant. I was nothing more than an office boy. I kept writing letters to all the repertory companies, and I bombarded Bill Fraser. And eventually I did get a job with him. It's such a long and I think very boring story, but I did eventually make it before you. But again, you see, they were the film equivalent to Mortimer Myers. Again, it was fascinating because the little one, Stan Laurel, was the brain, but not just Hollywood by any means dim, but far from it. But the Stan Laurel was the one who invented all the business, all the gag. And the fat one kept eating donuts 2 Peters later. It actually had to do it. Yes, you credit a little dumb waiter full of donuts. The film is quite definitely for many reasons. It's a phase thing I've always wanted, as far back as I can remember. I always wanted to be in film without knowing anything about any medium. And I think very lucky that I've done all 4 media, and I say it is, so always will be shown. I like making all films, so long as the scripts are good. And it's very difficult. William Hartnell was the original, then I think it was Patrick Troughton, and then Jon Pertwee. And I had to almost disassociate being 3 very different personalities of playing the same part. I thought the only thing to do for the film version, where everyone who had seen the television shows might not go to see, so you had to treat them as an entirely new audience, Doctor, but just play him as the almost conventional, absent-minded professional, but with quite a good brain, having made this wonderful time machine TARDIS.
Well, we're nearly finished, and soon you'll be able to go back and cut out all of my awful links and just kind of lace all the clips together instead. You'll have a far better evening without me wittering on. And this is an interesting one. I can't remember who the gentleman was who gave us these. He rang me up, having seen us on TV Brain, and made me take these reels away. They were all audio recordings held by a gentleman in Hancock, which is not very far from where I live now. And this is a 5Alexa5 episode called Planet of Platonia. But we're not interested in playing the actual 5Alexa5 episode, though we might run the music if Bill's kind enough to do that, because it is quite nice, the music. We were more excited because he'd recorded the whole shows on audio timer, and so there's some very good pre and post continuity in the shows, and sometimes the advert break. So we're going to run you the pre-show continuity, the post-show continuity, and if there are any, the ads as well, just as an illustration of what TV was like, really going out, on ATV at the time of 5Alexa5.
It's a Milky Bar Fizz!
The Milky Bar Kids is strong and tough, and only the best is good enough. The creamiest milk, the whitest bar, the goodness that's in Milky Bar.
The Milky Bars are on me!
Milky Bar so creamy white, Nestle's Milky Bar. We like to meet the Snap, Crackle Poppers, who eat Snap, Crackle, Pop, Rice Krispies.
And if you're a Snap, Crackle Popper, you can win one of these Matchbox motorway sets in the Rice Krispies painting competition. It's judged in 3 age groups, so everyone has a chance. Full details are on the back of special packets of your favorite
Snap, Crackle, Pop, Rice Krispies.
From the free Triang Christmas catalogue, the Triang Highway Range. Big British engineering with built-in strength. Big value, big choice. From your Triang toy shop now.
Keep them happy for ages to come with Airfix Better Builder. Every new set builds into the last. Get better value, better builder for Christmas by Airfix.
You love Giggles, she's a happy, happy doll. Just hear her laugh.
Tell her jokes, she giggles. Make a funny face, she giggles. She's the happiest doll you ever had. She's ideal.
Here's another ideal game. As you play, you build up the craziest mousetrap you ever saw.
Mousetrap!
Remember, mousetrap from Ideal.
Good morning.
Good morning, Trevor.
The best to you each morning.
Sorry to interrupt your breakfast. Kellogg's Cornflakes. None crisper, none fresher, none better.
Later on this afternoon, we'll be showing you all how to get knotted, in the nicest possible way, of course. Actually, it's a new method of crocheting without using all those difficult and rather complicated little instruments. Should be fascinating for our younger lady viewers. Then we'll be showing you the one and only athletic event that Tony Bastable's ever won, and giving you the results of the toy car race that Graham Hill was talking about last week. I'm talking about Magpie, of course, and it's at 5:15. Right now, though, adventure with Fireball XL5.
Okay, Venus?
Okay, Steve.
Right. Let's go.
I wish I was a spaceman, the fastest guy alive. I'd fly you around the universe in Fireball XL5. Way out in space together, conquerors of the sky. My heart would be a fireball, a fireball. Every time I gazed into your starry eyes, we'd take the path to Jupiter, and maybe very soon we'd cruise along the Milky Way and land upon the moon. To a wonderland of stardust, we'll zoom our way to Mars. My heart would be a fireball, a fireball, 'cause you would be my Venus of the stars.
Private Horner was caught chocolate-handed eating nut milk chocolate on parade. Who do you think you are, the chocolate soldier? Private Bell eats peanut treats. The peanuts are wrapped in thick milk chocolate, then covered in a delicious sugar candy coat that stops the chocolate melting in your hand. Private Bell is Sergeant Bell now. Treats milk chocolate melts in your mouth, not in your hand.
Have you seen TV Time this week? If you're mad on cooking, I should put the oven on low and run out and get one while they're still hot. There's big helpings in TV Time this week.
Fine Fair's Fresh Food Festival is on now, and there's lots of bargains. Like this. Anchor butter, only 1 and 7.5. Plus, these fantastic money-saving vouchers. This gives you 6pence off all sausages. This, 6pence off any of these St. Ivel products. And this, 1 and 6 off all weights of oven-ready chickens. The vouchers are in today's Express and Mirror. Bring them in, and get your share of the savings at Fine Fair's Fresh Food Festival.
Robertson's holds a full £1 of jam. Don't they all, you ask? No, some jams only give you 12 ounces. Get more jam for your money from Robertson's. It's the heavyweight.
We're on to our last few clips now, and this is a gentleman who died shortly after giving us this collection. A gentleman called David Owens, who was a sound engineer for Southern Television. And this is Southern Television's lunchtime show from the 19th of January 1969 with Jim Dale.
Janet Richmond's latest recording, and I hope you like it. Well, here we are once again in this lunchtime audience, and I think we'll start off with a teenager. She's sitting back here clutching a doll like mad. Would you move your pointed toes, because I don't want an accident, mate. There we are. Hello, Pet. Now, your name is what?
Marion Bush.
Marion Bush. Where do you come from, Marion?
Gosport.
Come from Gosport, and what's your dolly's name here?
Elizabeth.
Elizabeth, is it? How long have you had Elizabeth?
I don't know.
You don't know? Does that mean ever since you've been born?
No.
No? And how many other dollies have you got then?
Like 14.
How many?
14.
14? Look at me. Smile. All right, 14. 14. Now, is this your favourite one?
Yes.
Yeah, what do you bought it? You brought it along to see the show? Does it like our show?
I don't know, is it?
Well, ask her. Go on. Can she talk yet? What does she do? Squeak or what?
Squeak.
Some of them do terrible things, don't they, these days? All right, so you don't know how long you've had it, but have you any brothers and sisters then?
Only a sister, 15.
Only a sister, 15. She won't like that, will she? Only a sister. Is she at school still?
No, she goes to work.
Oh, I see. And what are you going to be when you go to work?
Teacher, I expect.
You'd like to be a teacher? Well, you got enough dolls to start your own classroom now, haven't you? All right, let's move down. Let's go down to this lady. A nice little fur coat on here. Hello, madam.
Hello.
You cold?
No, I'm
No,
rather
good.
warm, really.
You are. Your name is what?
Truman.
Mrs. Truman. And where do you come from?
Wilton Crescent, Shirley.
You didn't come with a crowd of people today,
No,
did you?
no, we didn't really. Just my friend and I here.
Oh, I see. Do you often watch the show?
Oh, yes, we do. Every day, yes.
Enjoy it, do you?
Oh, I do.
Well, thank you very
I
much
knew you
indeed.
immediately you came in.
Did you? Well, we come in just to say hello before the show, you know.
Very nice, too.
Good. Well, let's try and talk to as many people as we can. Let's move further down. We're giving the tracking experience to our cameraman here, but this gentleman, your name is what?
Derek Slade.
Derek, and who did you come with today, Derek?
Gay, my fiance.
Gay, hello, Gay. Yeah. And may I ask what your job is?
Well, yes, I'm with the Universal Health Studios here. We're opening a studio in Southampton.
Health Studios? Well, what does that mean? You go along there and weightlifting all day long?
Well, no, we're on the management side, but, you know, we slim people or put on weight for both men and women.
Really? How long's this been going now?
Well, it's an American organisation that's been over in London for about a year now.
Yes.
And now we're sort of moving to Southampton, and they're spreading about 50 throughout this country.
Have you got any what they call sauna baths where you belt each other with virtually twigs?
No, we've got very similar. We have steam baths, and you can run next door and have a cold shower if you're so energetic.
What, you mean you have a steam bath in one room and nip next door and the cold shower?
Yes, well, you have a steam bath and then you lay out with the showers alongside it, you see.
What do you do then? They lay you out in what room? You got another room for laying out in?
Yes, we've got sunrooms and things like that.
Surely the shock of coming out of a hot shower straight under hot, steam room into a cold shower. What's that feeling like? Bloody cold.
Horrible.
Well, I wish you the very best of luck with it. Now let's see. Let's move over. Move over to this lady here. And oh, hello. That's all we've got time for because sorry, but we've got to finish up now. And here's Danny and myself, and we'd like to sing a little song which we hope you'll like, and it's called Friends.
Friends, isn't it rather nice to have friends? Isn't
it rather nice to have friends to rely upon, shoulders to cry upon? You must have friends, friends. How can you get along without friends? How can you get along without someone to help you out when you were down and out?
And here we go, into the final two shows, and I'm saving two biggies for last, as they say. The first one is the very, very famous find now by Robert Wynne of some audio reels of Doctor Who, recorded off the telly all those years ago, which have become a bit more legendary with Mark Ayres, because he reckons they're some of the best quality recordings ever heard. We couldn't really not talk about them without looking at a couple that certainly were made in January. So from the 29th of January 1966, we've got a short extract from a Dalek Masterplan episode called Destruction of Time. And I'm sure I don't need many people to tell me what the Daleks sound like. And then we've also got another extract, which I'm going to talk about. It's from the Underwater Menace, episode 1, okay, which is from the 14th of January 1967. And there again, I mean, you know, you couldn't possibly not want to hear the wonderful Josie First really doing his mad scientist impression. So here are two Doctor Who clips from the Robert Wynne collection.
I wonder if that spaceship has anything to do with that violent young man, or any connection with that city below. Yes, there are one or two questions I must have answered.
Control reports. Space Vessel 111 in landing circuit. Is all prepared? Everything is ready.
I don't think you'll be able to get out of there in a hurry, my friend.
What is it?
Oh, it's a little invention of mine. I call it the magnetic chair. It has a force field strong enough to restrain a herd of elephants. So I wouldn't waste your energy trying to escape. You'll stay there until I direct otherwise. How is he, my dear? Yes. Oh, by the way, I found the city. And just as I was about to ascertain its locale, that young ruffian set upon me.
Can you get help for Stephen?
Oh, yes, I hope so. Just a minute. That young man, did he say anything? Strange. Yes, I shall have to cross-examine him when I get back. But don't worry, he's quite safe. Our guest is quite unable to move until I press that little switch at the back. So you're quite safe. Yes, he's quite harmless. Oh, and quite comfortable, I hope.
Oh, but this is good. This is very good. It's delicious.
This is excellent. Sit down, sit down. This is ambrosia. What's got into him?
I don't know. I've never seen him go for food like this before. It's usually hats.
Better hurry, I'll scoff the lot.
What is it? Plankton.
Plankton? What's that? Well, it's small plants and animals from the sea.
Animals?
Yeah, little spidery ones.
Oh, I don't think I'm very hungry suddenly.
You better get used to it. I don't expect there's much else to be had around here. Visitors. Good day to you. We've been expecting you.
He speaks English.
What's he mean he's been expecting us? We didn't know we were coming ourselves. The living goddess Ando sees and hears all. And she had a message about us? For you? Yes. She told us you would fall from the sky in time for our festival of the vernal equinox. And just what part are we to play in this festival of the vernal equinox? A very important part, I regret to say. Guards? No! Wait! I have something important to say.
We can say it then.
I won't speak under threats.
You have 5 minutes in which to make your point. After that, you will join your companions. The ceremony will proceed.
Doctor!
Go, girl.
What will happen to them?
They will come to no harm. Yet.
You'll have to go, Polly.
Now, stranger, say what you have to, and do not waste time. There is very little of it left for any of you.
What I have to say concerns a certain Professor Zaroff.
What do you know, Zaroff?
A great deal. He's here, isn't he?
How did you know?
The food! It couldn't be anyone else but Zaroff. He led the field in producing food from the sea. His progress is astonishing.
You are a friend of Zaroff?
Just send him this message, and you'll see.
I will take no message to Zaroff.
You're making a big mistake.
Yes, what is it, Ara?
I was told to clear the table.
Yes, we've wasted enough time.
Ara, take this message to Professor Zaroff.
And the final clip is from a Hancock's half hour called New Year Resolutions, which we weren't going to originally include, but the Tony Hancock Society very kindly pointed out that only a short section of this edition exists, and because the quality is not particularly good on the recording, it has never been released on commercial CD. So I thought the least we could do was have a little insight, since it is the new year, into Tony Hancock's New Year's resolutions. You're going to be hearing this podcast at the end of January to 2023. Like I said, there are 12 more to come, but I'm recording it on the 3rd of January 2023. So the idea of New Year's resolution seems very apt.
I'm not saying another word till I've had a look at me this. All right, then, let's be fair. I'll give you a chance to win your money back. For every resolution you keep for the year, I'll give you £5, and for every one you break, you give me £5. Starting from now. Right. It's going to be easy. Man of iron will like me. I must be going now. Sid James asked me to pop in and see him for me. I'll come with you just to keep a check on you. Now, come on, let me get on. I'm late for an appointment. All right, come on in. Hold tight now. Excuse me, can I sit down? Room for a little in here? Thank you. Hello, little girl. What are you crying for?
My mummy gave me 4 prints and I put it inside my glove, but it's fallen out.
Oh, come on, cheer up. It's not as bad as all that.
But you could have to make me get off, but I haven't got my fare, and I've been late for school, and the teacher made me stay behind tonight. Perhaps you could, well...
Perhaps I could what?
Perhaps you could lend me 4 pence.
Fine, certainly. Of course I'll lend you 4 pence. Neither a borrower or a lender be. Oh, yes. Well, look, I'm sorry, little girl. It's for some particular... I see, I can't lend you 4 pence. You see, it's... Stop it. Everybody's looking at us. It's all right. Yes, nothing to do with me. No. I don't know. No, I didn't, Carter. No, not yet. No, shut up. Go and sit somewhere else. Go on, sit next to the vicar. I don't think he wallops you.
Oh, you might lend me 4 pence, but that's to make me get off when I'll be late for school.
Hard luck. I had to walk to school. No boots either. Sharp Grizzly.
And the teacher kicked me in after school.
Look, I can't help you. I'm not lending you 4 pence, so shut up.
And then I get into trouble for getting home late.
Yeah, shame. My heart bleeds for you. Shut up.
And Dad did make me go to bed early.
So you're good. Get rid of those bags under your eyes.
Oh, well, get this supper.
Don't keep on. I can't lend you 4 pence. I've made a resolution, you see. Never lend money. I can't break it. It's more than I dare do.
I won't be able to listen to Hancock's half hour on the wireless.
I'm sorry, there's nothing I...
Thank you very much.
Not at all. I saw you lend it fourpence. Neither a borrower nor a lender for you. That's half of it gone. Come on. £2.10 you owe me. Oh, no, I didn't lend it to her. She grabbed it out of my hand. She overpowered me.
I did not.
Yes, you did. Give us it back. Shut up! Nothing to do with me, McGuff. Never seen her before, just before. Fred, please, everybody ready? Fred, please. What's going on here? It's him, the fat geezer. He let this little girl fall, now he wants it back again. No, I did not lend it to her. Yes, he did. I saw him. He didn't see anything. You were too busy drawing moustaches on those Jack Hawkins fag adverts. Did he lend you fourpence, little girl?
Yes.
I didn't. Listen, I'll give you £1 if you tell him I didn't lend you fourpence.
I don't want £1. I just want a fourpence for my birthday that you lent me.
I didn't lend you fourpence. Get out of her throat. I'm not the guy. I'm admiring her beads. Give it a fourpence. I'll flush you. No, I'm not me no turnpike. What's fourpence to a man like you? That's not the point. You look well fed up, bloody committed. He's doing all right. So he is. Look at him. Fat. Yes, I'm in a very dodgy profession. I bet he's got a checkbook. I don't know why the likes of him uses the buses anyway. Parasite. Yeah. I've got a plastic bag. Working men's transport buses. Here. You social butterflies gallivanting about here and there. Why do you attack me? Muggy's made round to go round, mate. I know it is, but when our lot get in, we'll have your lot in the tower. Here. Leave the buses to us workers. This isn't a rush hour. It is for me. I'm late to strike leaders. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. Stinking rich, you won't even lend a poor little kid fourpence. All right, I'll lend her fourpence back. I should think so too. Now then, what do you want, little girl?
A penny half, please.
A penny half? I've been twisted. She can't fourpence of me. What's the other sentence for? Well, the old dad wants a ticket as well, doesn't he? Who's an old dad? I am. Cut the order away, please, mate. Coming up. Oh, that's good, isn't it? That's marvellous. Oh, fancy a father putting a young child up to that sort of thing. My dad never made us kids do anything.
And that's all, folks. As they say, that is the very first edition of the Kaleidopod. And anybody who would like to send any questions they want to ask me about the audio archive or requests for things to listen to from the audio archive can do so by emailing us at info@tvbrain.info. If you want to subscribe to our database at TV Brain, you can find that at www.tvbrain.info. You can join our Facebook group called Kaleidoscope Archive, or you can also, if you want to, find us on Amazon if you want to buy any of our books or DVDs. We have events coming up at the Midland Arts Centre in March, June, September and December, which you'll find out about on our Facebook page. And on the 5th of August, we're at the British Film Institute for our 35th anniversary event as well. So, all good. I look forward to speaking to you next at the end of February 2023. I'll say Happy New Year to you now because it's still the start of 2023 for me. But since it's now the end of January for you guys listening to this, maybe I should say Happy February to you instead. And I'll speak to you later. Bye-bye.